Hello, my name is Mark Coonrad, and I am the unit historian for the 3rd Battalion, 12th Infantry Regiment. The 3rd of the 12th Infantry was a light infantry battalion that served in the 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam from 1966 to 1970 and saw service in a couple of places in the Central Highlands. The battalion actually started out in Phu Yen Province, which is located here on the coast. They are based out of Tuy Hoa, and that's where they arrived to Vietnam in September of 1966. In April of 1967, they were shipped out to the Pleiku area, Pleiku Province, and they served there until around November of 67, when they were sent north for Operation MacArthur and the Battle of Dak To up in Kon Tum Province. And late in 68, they were brought back to Pleiku, and that's where we find them on January 16th of 1969. The area that they're operating in, I've got highlighted here. It is an area called Chu Rpan. That is the name of the map sheet that I have this little inset from, and it's the name of the highest peak on this western ridge of mountains. There's a western ridge and an eastern ridge, and in between those two is a place called VC Valley, and that is the area that they were patrolling. They're actually up in the mountains on the southern side of this mountain ridge. This area is important because these two mountains and this mountainous area here formed a kind of a base area for North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces as they staged for pushing further east into the country. There's also a main logistics supply route that runs from Pleiku through the Mang Yang Pass to An Khe and all the way on to Quy Nhon. So the 3rd of the 12th was sent here to clear these ridges out and just patrol the general area. In the days prior to January 16th, the battalion had been patrolling heavily, had no enemy contact, but there had been some discoveries of cave systems and hooches, some rice caches, and they actually had been preparing to move the battalion fire support base, so that preparations occurred on the 15th, and then today on the 16th, they're planning to make that move. So this inset, like I said, is the actual area of operations on the military grid reference system map that we are going to be looking at today. So here's that inset map blown up and shows the positions of all of the battalion assets on the morning of the 16th. So I'll just go over what we have real quickly. The headquarters element is here at the battalion firebase, which is unnamed, and that'd be the headquarters company, Charlie company, the recon platoon headquarters, the mortar platoon, and Bravo battery 6 of the 2-9 field artillery, which was the direct support field artillery battery for the 3rd of the 12th. This battery was equipped with 505mm howitzer cannons and could react and supply immediate direct artillery fire to any targets called out by the forward observers, which were co-located with each company headquarters unit. So Charlie Company, like I said, is here, and they had sent out some ambush patrols the night before. So those are very small patrols between 3 and 6 men, just to kind of as an early warning system, and maybe ambush anybody moving up the trail systems. Each one is kind of set next to a trail system. So that's Charlie Company. Go to Alpha Company. Alpha Company is actually headquartered up on Hill 1233, and they had been at this hilltop just north of them the day before, but that hilltop is going to be occupied by the battalion firebase. So they had vacated, moved one hilltop south, and left a couple of platoons there as security in preparation for this huge lift that's going to occur today of the battalion firebase. So all of those artillery pieces that I spoke about, the infrastructure, and personnel and other equipment that are needed are all going to get brought to this hilltop by Chinook helicopters and Huey helicopters. So Alpha Company is there. Bravo Company was actually combat assaulted up into Chu Rpan on the 14th of January, and they have spent the last 2 days sending out short-range patrols and platoon-sized patrols on search and destroy missions, and they've had some findings. There's a fairly major cache site with caves that they found here at the SRP-24 site. Delta Company is got the southern part of this mountain range. They are headquartered here at Hill 1151. They had a few short-range patrols that stayed out overnight on the 15th. 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, and 4-4, and a single platoon, first platoon, is headquartered all the way out here on the northern side of the company area. The last element on the map is the Apache teams 4 and 1. Apache teams were the battalion reconnaissance teams, and it usually consisted of between 3 and 6 men, and 2 of them were co-located. There's not a lot of activity noted in the log for them today, so I don't know exactly what they were doing. I know that on the 15th of January, they discovered a cache site here with a bunch of rice and some hooches, and so they're likely that they're still there, kind of cleaning up that site. So that's it. That is the battalion layout for the morning of January 16th. So we'll go ahead and just get started moving through the items in the log. And just a note of these battalion logs that I'm taking this information from, they were the daily staff duty journals that were recorded at the battalion talk, which would be located here with HHC and on the firebase. And so it's just a chronological list of events. It is not 100% complete. There's things that are left out. And, you know, I will never know exactly what happens in between those time hacks, but it's fairly complete, and it gives a good picture of the movements of some of these elements during the day. This log was the responsibility of the Battalion Operations Officer, or S3, and that individual at this point was a Major David Fried. He was a West Point grad, I think class of 59. And so he may not have been actually writing the logs. At this point, they were actually handwritten, which is kind of neat. Earlier in the tour, they had been typed, but I guess at some point the typewriter broke or they didn't have access to it anymore, so they're handwritten. And I don't know if it's his handwriting. I think it alternates with who the enlisted people were that were on duty taking the log. But at the end of each day, he reviews it and puts his signature down at the bottom of the last page. The battalion is commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Richard Xavier Larkin, who's also a West Point grad, and he had been in command of the battalion since late 1968. So the first thing that happens every morning is there's this constriction of elements that were placed out overnight. Every unit kind of has it. Some elements will come back to the company perimeter. Some elements will go back to a platoon perimeter. If there was a platoon, like say this first platoon that was out here by itself, sometimes they'll go there. So first thing that's noted is that the ambush patrols for Bravo Company all collapse back onto the firebase. That's in preparation for the big move that's going to occur later. Next move noted is up in Bravo Company, and that is SRP-27 makes their move back to the company perimeter, and so that is completed at 0700. Interesting report noted in the log next is at 0701, Alpha Company reports that winds at their location here are blowing at 15 to 30 knots. So that is going to come into play. Well, it could come into play because they're expecting this massive lift of equipment from here to here, and if the winds are blowing too strong up there, they may have to call this whole thing off. Next in the log, we have Patrol 1A makes a move to the east, and they're changed their designation. Overnight, they were SRP-21, but they must have split into 2 different sections, and so Patrol 1A is one of those sections, and it moves to this grid coordinate 090428. So a word about these grids. These are 1 kilometer square grids. That is the standard unit of measurement for this scale of map. So each grid is broken up. You can't see the lines, but if you know what you're looking at, is basically 10 100-meter lines going north to south and 10 100-meter lines going east to west, and that's how you can find your grid point. So this one is 090. It is on. Here's the 09 line, so it is 090, and then 428. So it's it is above the 428. So if you just go 4-2 and then count up 8 lines, about where 8 lines would be, that would be 428. So next we have patrol number 2 that moves out from Bravo Company's perimeter, headed west. And down here in Delta Company, there's a closure of SRP 44 to the company patrol base. Bravo Company sends out another patrol, this time to the northeast, and they check in at 0830 at that grid coordinate there, which is just about 102. No, that's not correct. It is 116438. And then those two patrols actually move towards each other. They're going to link up. SRP 25 from Bravo Company closes the company perimeter. And the first lift of Chinook helicopters leaves the battalion fire base down here and heads towards the Alpha Company 1st and 2nd Platoon position here. Kind of as that's happening, 1st Platoon, well, I'm not sure exactly where 1st Platoon went, but they're not noted in the log. 2nd Platoon is maintaining the area, but Alpha Company proper, or Alpha Company minus, because they don't have all their platoons with them, sends out 3rd Platoon, which makes their way here, and a separate patrol designated as patrol number 1. 3rd Platoon gets to this position and then sends out a small patrol of its own designated 3rd Platoon patrol number 1. And they start to move, they move actually down into the river valley, this little stream valley, and then start to move back up the other side. So just a word about contour lines if you're not familiar with this type of map. Basically, if you can imagine that each of these lines are like ripples in a pond. If you dropped a rock at the top of every peak, and it just forms these kind of lines that go out from that. That is how you read these. And so the tighter those lines or those ripples are, the steeper the terrain is. The farther apart they are, the more gradual that pitch is. And eventually, if you follow that idea of water, you dropped it at the top, or you drop a rock at the top and those ripples start to move out. When those things get all the way to the lowest point that they meet water, usually they stop, and you can see they start to go up again the other side. And so we have a ridge, and we have a ridge, and we have VC Valley here in the middle. Patrol 1A from Alpha Company continues to move to the east, and these two patrols, Patrol 2 and Patrol 3, actually close the firebase. The movement of equipment is completed for the new firebase, and so that Bravo Company 629, they have, or Bravo Battery 629, they have moved out to this new fire support base up on top of this mountain. Headquarters is there, the mortar platoon is there, but left behind were Charlie Company and the Recon platoon. So they've stayed in that area, and they're going to start to slowly patrol to the northeast and make their way into this ridge line. 3rd Platoon's patrol has finished up their sweep, and they make their way back to the 3rd Platoon location. And then that platoon actually collapses back onto the Alpha Company perimeter. And the Bravo Company elements start to move out. One element that was not noted on my map is that there was an airstrike, a daisy cutter airstrike that was scheduled to get laid into generally this position, but at 0950 the log states that that airstrike is not going to go in, and they're going to reschedule it for tomorrow. So that airstrike, that daisy cutter, is usually dropped in to kind of build an LZ. That bomb will just explode right at ground level and kind of act as a giant weed eater and just knock down all the foliage and trees. That's the theory anyway. Oftentimes these jungles were so thick that one was not sufficient. And so Charlie Company is really split up here. The main body of the company is located here. 4th Platoon is headed north, 2nd Platoon headed far to the northeast, 3rd Platoon a little closer. So definitely getting some spread on that company sized element. this main element is down to basically just 1st Platoon and the headquarters element. And Recon Platoon splits off as well, and they're out here. So this tells me there was nothing noted in the log on the 15th that these Apache teams closed the firebase. So I think they're still out there, and then what is left is just the headquarters element and maybe one or two other Apache teams that are kind of operating as a separate maneuver element. Delta Company, which has not had a lot of movement today, actually has two things happen. This SRP-41 stayed in position most of the day, but then late in the day they start to head back. Before they get all the way back, a new SRP-41 is sent out, and so this is a good representation of sometimes these designations of SRP 42, 41, whatever they are, they may show up on consecutive days, but the men within those SRPs are different. Oftentimes, this SRP-41 is coming back. Those guys are going to get a rest, and a new group of 6 men, or 6 to 10 men, is headed out. So that's the majority of the moving pieces that occurred today. Actually, not a lot of patrolling by the companies, but this huge firebase move from here, this location, all the way up to the Alpha Company 1st and 2nd Platoon, or sorry, 2nd Platoon locations. So a move of the firebase, and this gets those guns much higher up off the ground. It clears. They're going to have much longer range and better visibility to help support the company elements. And also, they can probably also act as support for other units. I know that east of this river is, I believe, Delta Company 30, the 8th Infantry is operating on the east side of this VC Valley. So a couple of things that did happen is at 107-412, that would be this SRP-24 location. There was an additional findings the day prior on the 15th. They had found a considerable amount of cave systems, and it says what the log says is they estimate that 10 people had occupied. Yesterday, that was their estimate, but today, after exploring a little bit more, they estimate that 20 to 30 had occupied it. They also found a piece of paper with some numbers and writing on it, and a piece of wood 3 feet long, 2.5 feet wide, and 1.5 inch thick. Also has writing on it. Large amounts of natural food in the area, bananas, etc. And just to make sure that they confirmed this was definitely an enemy position and not just something used by the civilian population, is that they found 51 caliber rounds and a Chi-Com type hat and a plastic helmet, an MVA plastic helmet with writing on the inside of it. So more findings as this SRP stays in place and explores that cave system. A little later in the day, they actually report again in that they find a bunch of small tunnels, 40 to 50 feet long, and they estimate that those have been used in the past 2 to 3 days, and it says baskets of cloth. Also found at about 1400, Patrol 1A finds a 3-foot wide trail, and they say it looks like a rally point. Something about it, it splits into 6 different trails, and so this kind of intersection of trails running, and that would make a good rally point for the MVA or VC forces in the area. They think it's 1 to 2 feet wide. 10 to 15 people have used it in the last day, and the main trail is running east to west. The last report in the log as far as events occurs down here with Charlie Company's 3rd Platoon, and late at 2000 hours, Charlie Company 3rd Platoon listening post. So a listening post is usually 2 to 3 men sent out outside of a smaller perimeter to just act as a early warning system for any enemy units advancing on the perimeter. So they report seeing flashlights, 6 to 7 flashlights, 200 to 300 meters to the northwest. And I just realized that my X is in the wrong location. It should actually be here to the northwest. But they called in fire on it, but there's a problem, and they cannot fire. And the reason why is because of the GTL, or the gun target line. So if you remember, those guns that used to be here were moved up to here. And so 3rd Platoon is asking them to fire, but if you just draw a straightish line to that spot where they want to fire, it would go right over the heads of 2nd Platoon. And so that is the gun target line, just an imaginary line drawn from the barrel of the gun to where they want the rounds to hit. And if there's a friendly unit in the area, then they can't fire. And so at this point, at 2100 hours, Charlie Company 3rd Platoon is just told that there's not going to fire on it and they need to observe the flashlights and report any further developments. And there are no further developments noted in the log. So the plan summary for the next day, 17 January 1969, basically says that Alpha Company is going to continue to patrol in this area. Alpha Company is going to continue to patrol in this area. No real change to mission. Bravo Company is going to continue up here at this mountaintop, and they need to prepare an LZ at 118445. So 118445 would be about right here if that daisy cutter is disapproved again. So that's that daisy cutter that was scheduled but didn't get dropped, and so they're kind of put on alert that if that daisy cutter doesn't get dropped on the 17th, that Bravo Company is going to need to move in there and cut an LZ manually. Charlie Company continues their mission in this AO. They're just going to continue to push northeast, and they are the battalion reaction force. So they're probably the easiest to pick up by helicopter because they're not in the mountains so much. So they are kind of designated that if one of these other elements gets into trouble and needs assistance, this is going to be the unit that gets picked up and goes. Delta Company is going to just continue their mission in the same area, no change. Recon, which is attached to Charlie Company right now, continue their mission. So that just basically means that the Recon platoon, which is commanded by a lieutenant, a platoon leader, at this point he's basically acting as a 5th maneuver platoon for the Charlie Company commander, located here. The mortar platoon is, of course, up here, and so is 629 Field Artillery. So that's it. Those are the moving pieces of the battalion on January 16th of 1969. So now we're going to just look at where all of those units ended up. We kind of just went over that, but this next slide will clear up some of these arrows and make it a little easier to see. So this is it. This is where everybody is positioned, and there's some new elements have kind of popped up because ambush patrols and SRPs have been pushed out from some of these elements. So Charlie Company has a new ambush patrol here and an SRP here and here. Delta Company basically remains as seen in the last slide. Alpha Company has condensed a little bit, and 1st Platoon now, it notes them back as being in the same position. So 1st and 2nd Platoon Alpha Company are on perimeter security at the new battalion firebase, but there's SRPs that have been sent out, 1-1, 1-4, 1-2, and 1-3. And Bravo Company up here at the north, their 1st platoon is still detached, and they have one AP1, which is the location of what used to be SRP 2-1. Now they're just calling it AP1, so probably they shrunk the amount of men that were there and sent some back to the platoon perimeter. And 3rd Platoon, oddly enough, it gives them a grid coordinate just 100 meters north of the main company perimeter. I don't know why they would have a separate perimeter so close to the main, but that is what the log says for January 16th, 1969 night locations. Thanks for listening, and as always, these videos are recorded in honor of the hundreds of men that proudly served in the 3rd Battalion, 12th Infantry in Vietnam from 1966 to 1970. Steadfast and loyal, that is the 4th Infantry Division motto, and the 4th ID is this logo to the right of the rifle icon, the ivy leaves. That's the 4th ID patch. And Braves always first. That is the 3rd Battalion, 12th Infantry Regiment motto. The information that I used, as I mentioned, was pulled primarily from the 3rd of the 12th Infantry S3 Operations daily journals, and those were retrieved from the National Archives in College Park, Maryland in late 2021 and early 2022. Thanks again for listening, and if you are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and give my channel a like and a subscribe, and dig into the other videos that I have there. This is the 3rd of 3 days in a row. I have January 14th, 15th, and 16th. So kind of gives you a picture of what 3 days in the battalion looks like. I have some from May of 1968 on there, and also some videos and interviews, and I'll be adding more as I go. Thanks again.